Hello, beautiful people. Happy Monday. Happy new week. And today I would like to talk about Sun in Gemini. Actually, it's something which I already mentioned in my shorter video I posted yesterday on my social media on Instagram and Facebook. But I decided, as I find this theme to be quite important, especially because of the energies we are leading towards, I decided to expand this video and talk about it in further detail. So, as mentioned, yesterday I released a video where I talked about Sun shifting into the sign of Gemini. This is a very important shift because suddenly the energy is moving from feminine signs of earth and water into masculine signs of air and fire. So day before Sun moved into the sign of Gemini, we had Mars moving into the sign of Leo, which is a fire sign, and straight away it made the exact opposition to Pluto, and this is actually a reactivation of this cardinal fixed cross which we have going on, and it will continue to be going on because all the players are not fully in position. So on one end we have Pluto, on the other end we have Mars, and then square to that is the nodes, and soon Jupiter will move into the conjunction with North Node on the 1st of June. But this is not exactly what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is this shift of energy. So suddenly in the past months, especially, we had this lot of feminine energy, a lot of planets being in Taurus. Sun was transiting through the sign of Taurus, and this was all about grounding and feeling into emotions, because Taurus is all about our sensory experiences. It rules our senses. It's very sensual. Mercury was going through the sign of Taurus. It's actually still in there, but it was having its retrograde phase, so that again was forcing us going inwards and feeling to our emotion. And at the time Mars was going through the sign of Cancer, so we had all these inner emotions bubbling under the surface. Mars had to deal with all this that was resurfacing and helping us to realize which aspects of our identity are no longer who we are, like the labels that we gave to ourselves, like are they actually valid? Is this still who we are or not? And there were a lot of positive aspects going on, from Cancer to Pisces, where we have Saturn and Neptune, and then we had also positive aspects going on within Taurus and Cancer, because they sextile each other. And now the energy is shifting. So currently we had Sun moving into the sign of Gemini, which happened yesterday. Gemini, it's all about flexibility, adaptability. Gemini is a very curious sign. It's very mutable as well. And as soon as Sun moved into the sign of Gemini, it made the trine to Pluto. It made trine with Pluto. And this is a very positive aspect, and is supporting us on this path of evolution and path of transformation, which we are undergoing on the individual basis and as a collective, because there is a lot of changes taking place. And actually Sun going through the sign of Gemini is very good sign, because it allows us to be flexible and adaptable, seek new information, and also accept the polarity and duality of reality that is helping us to understand that there is more than one way to get to where we want to go. Because Gemini is the twin, so is the two, and it's probably the most mutable of all signs, because it's the air, so it's very unattached to things. If you know people with a lot of Gemini, that they're very, very flexible, and they don't like to get too attached or too fixated on things, which is actually the energy we need right now, because with all this fixation of the past month, all this energy being concentrated in a sign of Taurus, and Taurus is a very fixed sign. It doesn't like changes, because it's, it likes its comfort zone. And also Pluto going through the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is again a fixed sign. It can be quite stubborn. In traditional astrology, it was moved by Saturn, so that's also where it's strong headiness come from. And now suddenly we have this Sun shining its light onto Gemini, so it's saying like, hey guys, there is a there is a need for shift of energy, right? And also with Mars going into sign of Leo. Actually, Leo is a fixed sign, but it's again changing the energy, is giving us this fire, this desire, instinctual desire to create, to move forward, to follow our purpose. And this is serving our evolution. This is helping us towards this transformation that we are facing at the moment. And as mentioned, Mars is in opposition with Pluto, so this is requiring an integration. It's a point of integration. So that which we've learned now needs to be put into practice and integrated. Mars is giving us the stamina to do that. And now Sun being in a sign of Gemini, it's actually giving us the flexibility and adaptability and curiosity to seek new ways to adapt to these new circumstances, and is actually helping us to embrace our multidimensionality, because there is so many layers and so many ways of identifying reality, because the function of Gemini, as we know from the traditional astrology, is all about communication and how we communicate and how we travel short distance and our neighborhood and our cousins and all that. But it's actually the function of Gemini is to label and to identify in order to connect, to give label, right? To give us, to support this process of creating an identity, because after Gemini we have Cancer, and Cancer is our ego identity, our ego structure, and it's supporting the sense of safety and security, right? But so what is happening in this sign of Gemini while Sun is going through it, there is actually going to be quite a few squares, because as we are aware, Saturn is currently in Pisces, Neptune is currently in Pisces, and Gemini squares Pisces. So actually before the end of this week, Sun will square Saturn, and eventually before the end of its transit, it is going to square Neptune. And currently Mars, being in a sign of Taurus, is actually going to square the North Node, and it's going to square Mercury, because Mercury is still there, and Mercury is actually the ruler of Sun at the moment. Sun is the ruler of Mars at the moment, because Sun rules Leo, Mercury rules Gemini, and Mars actually rules Aries, where we have the Chiron. Chiron will be coming into square with Venus on Wednesday. So there are a lot of squares going on. So what is this actually telling us in this, big mess that's happening in the sky at the moment, is that there is a necessity for these adjustments, for this change of direction, for there is this crisis and tension that requires us to make some changes to release this tension, right? So that is square. Square is always creating a point of tension and crisis that is forcing us into changing something so we can relieve this sense of tension. And this Sun going through the sign of Gemini is actually helping us with that, because Sun, as soon as it enters the sign of Gemini yesterday, made a trine to Pluto. So this is telling us this is a positive part of this process that we are at the moment, and it's helping us in this process of transformation, transmutation, of letting go of the past. Because, as we might be aware, I spoke about it, and, I spoke about it with my friends, Michaela and Adrian, during our new moon, full moon videos, that during this entire year, we have Pluto square in the nodes. So there is this need for fixing, or for integrating, or even better said, there is this need for changing something that is connected to our past. We have to release it, we have to let it go, because the resolution node to the square is the south node in Scorpio. So as I've been speaking, there is this attachment to the past that is making us feel disempowered, that is not making us feel not fully in control. And currently Sun going through the Gemini is actually supporting this process of release, because as I mentioned, Gemini is a very flexible energy. It's very mutable, it's very adaptable. It represents the change of season. So in the northern hemisphere, we are transiting from spring into the summer. In the southern hemisphere, you're going to be transiting from, I believe, fall or autumn into winter. So it's like transitionary sign, and it allows us to be more flexible and adaptable and to welcome these changes into our life. And changes are absolutely necessary. As I already spoke about in the previous months, we had all this energy of new beginnings and endings, but that was just the energy. So we had to familiarize ourselves with this energy that was starting to be more and more present and more pushy in our life. Because if we recap back to when Sun entered Taurus a month ago, it made a square to Pluto, and it actually happened only a day after the solar eclipse, which was the second new moon in Aries on 29 degrees, whereas the first new moon in Aries was on a 0 degree. So we have all these beginnings and endings. 0 and 29 degrees are the anaretic degrees, they are karmic degrees, and having the Aries before Aries went Pisces. So we had all this ending of the cycle, as I've been talking about all these months, ending of the cycles. Then we had this fresh energy of Aries, which was telling us that there is this instinctual desire, instinctual need for a new beginning, for changing the direction, to try something different, right? So the eclipses, they were again activating this energy, and but at the time the energy was not right. This is also something we were talking about, something that I have mentioned, my colleagues mentioned, and we were saying that the time wasn't quite right, because especially in the past 1 month, during Sun transit in Taurus and conjuncting North Node, conjuncting Mercury, conjuncting Uranus, we had all this introspective energy, all this energy of because Venus, she was she was in Gemini, but then later on and currently still she was in Cancer. So it's again this introspective energy, because Venus is ruling Taurus, right? So it was telling us about this, we need to feel into things, we need to ground the energy. With the Mercury going retrograde, it was a lot of inner dialogue, it was a lot of about how do we feel, what do we value, reevaluating things, feeling into things, like what is our relationship to ourselves, how our external environment is reflecting back to us, how we feel about ourselves, or what changes needs to be made, because perhaps we are not being mirrored. How do we feel we should be, we deserve to be treated or mirrored or to be seen externally, and all these processes were going on. So we had the opportunity to reconnect with ourselves, reevaluate all these things, rethink it, refeel it, and then come up with certain answers, certain ideas, Mercury ideas, about how we want to proceed in the upcoming month. So the past month, especially the month of April, was more or less about this, it's not time for action. Let's just, let this internal process to take place, and then we see what happens, right? But then we had the new moon in Taurus only a few days ago, and that was already telling us about, okay, there is this new beginning, there is this new direction being created, there is this desire to start stepping forward and start doing things, changing things. And actually, side note, with Uranus going through the sign of Taurus since 2018, and it will remain there for another 3 years, Uranus is completely restructuring our priorities, and is also helping us to detach from these things which perhaps in the past we thought were necessary. Perhaps we thought, well, I can't live without this, this is so important to me. And now suddenly Uranus gets there and goes like, well, this is outdated, this no longer serves you, this is keeping you stuck. Maybe you don't need all these 100 pairs of shoes or these handbags and work like a slave and take all these loans and get into debt to have all these things. That do they actually matter to you? And maybe they do, maybe they don't. But with Uranus being in a sign of Taurus, it's kind of making us to look at things, shake things up a little bit for us and go like, oh, well, do you really care about this so much? Because, maybe in upcoming times this will not be available or something. So it's kind of keeping us on our toes, there's me being Taurian myself, I'm Taurus Sun. We get quite attached to things, and also we get very stubborn and stuck because we get so fixated onto something, and it's very difficult to make changes because we are so stuck in our comfort zone. And now Uranus being there, it kind of is helping us like, oh, well, you don't need to be so inflexible, because actually life is not like that. Life doesn't work like that. So to me personally, I can talk from my personal experience, it really helped me to become more flexible and more open-minded and more adaptable in my own experience, because suddenly I am no longer able to be so rigid in my life anymore, and I'm becoming more and more detached, and constantly I am personally reevaluating, like, does this really matter to me so much? Like, as you know, as I've been sharing, I've been relocating from place to place, and every single time that I'm packing my bags and going from one place to another, I need to let go of more things, because, you know, of the luggage restriction, and also it is not so easy to carry your entire life with you. Like, it's actually very strenuous. Also, it's expensive, but also physically it's not easy, right? So every single time I'm repacking my life again, I'm actually reevaluating, do I still need this? Does this really matter to me? And this is, you know, again, the Uranian function, like, which is helping us to detach in order to become more liberated, more free. Like, how many things do we really need? You know, are we actually using all of them? And, you know, this kind of thing. And also we have to remember that Uranus currently is the ruler of Pluto still, because Pluto, I mean, is hanging for dear life on this 0 degree of Aquarius, but it's still there until 11th of June, which is when it will move back into Capricorn. So currently Uranus is still the ruler of Pluto, and that's, again, it's removing everything that's outdated, and it's no longer supporting our evolution, you know, that is like hindering us. And you know, we have to continuously keep looking into the past, like, what is this thing that is keeping me feel stuck and disempowered, and what can I do about it, right? And going back to sun transiting through the sign of Gemini at the moment, we actually have the opportunity to look at things from a little bit lighter point of view, like more lighter perspective, like to be a little bit more flexible and open-minded, and also be curious, like seek new information, like because also the another thing I wanted to mention is that in the past people didn't have the access to the information we have at the moment, so they thought, well, this is the only way, right? For example, our ancestors appreciated certain values and certain things. They thought, okay, this is essential for our survival, and this is how it's always been, so they passed, you know, that on to the next generation, and this is how the generation lived, and nobody questioned anything because there was no other way to seek information, right? But now we have access to all this information, which is in a, you know, it's got its polarity, duality, of course, but in a sense it's allowing us to reevaluate things, to actually have the understanding that, well, is this really my story? Is this really what I need? Just because it was something that my parents needed, for example, is this what I really need? And do I need to put all this time and effort and resources into having that? Is it supporting me on my path? Is this what matters to me? And with the Uranus there, it's actually giving us the opportunity, because Uranus, you know, I mean, it still kind of rules the internet, but it's all this progressive technology, which in a sense, it's giving us these opportunities to see other things as valuable, right? And currently, and also in the upcoming times, I believe the most valuable asset will be information. So it no longer will be this attachment to things, but it will be information. And actually we will be more inclined to be lighter, right? Not to have all these Taurian things that are kind of holding us stuck and holding us in a sense in prison. Like, okay, I have this beautiful house, but, you know, I have all this money to pay, and I have to make all this money to maintain this lifestyle and these appearances. And in a sense, it making us feel stuck and enslaved. And that's why, you know, this Uranus is passing on this information to Pluto and saying, like, well, is this actually helping me to feel self-empowered or not? And then again, going back to Sun, going through the sign of Gemini, and I'm jumping here and there and everywhere because everything is connected, guys. Everything is happening at the same time. We cannot look at just, okay, Venus is doing just this and it's just about Venus in Cancer. There is nothing else that matters, right? And also we have to think about Venus being in Cancer is ruled by a moon. So moon is moving every 2.5 days. Currently, moon is being in Cancer. So it's actually going to conjunct Venus, you know, within its transit through Cancer, sign of Cancer. And, you know, this is again helping us to be more flexible. So Venus being in a sign of Cancer again is helping us to, like, okay, well, you know, the mood is changing every 2.5 days, you know, and let's be more like fluid, let's be more fluid with how we feel about things and stuff like that. But anyway, going back to Gemini, because this should be all about Sun in Gemini, I feel that it's really throughout the transit of Sun in the sign of Gemini, it's going to help us to open our mind a little bit. Open our mind, because also, as I mentioned, it's going to make all this square. It's going to make the square to Saturn. I believe it's on Saturday this week. And that, again, is going to kind of cause attention, because it will be the last quarter square between Saturn and Sun, which is this need for liberation, for breaking free, is this crisis in consciousness, like, oh my God, I'm done with this, right? And Saturn in Pisces is dissolving things. It's dissolving this old structure. It's also letting us know that perhaps even time time is not so solid anymore, because I don't know, like I mentioned this before, I don't know about you guys, but in my experience, the time is definitely accelerated. It's not flowing in the same way as it had been in the past. Also, from my personal experience, most of the day, I have no idea what day is it. I have no idea what day is it, what date is it. I obviously check out the transit, so I know what's going on, but sometimes I'm completely lost. Like the other day, I was confused. Like I thought we were already in June. I didn't even, are we still in May? I just confused myself. So again, with these squares to Saturn, it's again like, well, guys, maybe we cannot be so attached to, these old ways of seeing reality. Like, okay, there is this time and there is this structure and this is how things are done, but now this flexibility is required. With this Sun going through the sign of Gemini for this month, it will be necessity to actually open our mind, be curious, seek new information, or at least look at things from different perspective, because also we are going to have Mars square to Jupiter. So Mars is currently in Leo, as I mentioned, and we have to bring Mars into conversation because Sun is ruling Leo. So Sun has an impact on Mars. And Mars currently is in pursuit of his happiness. Mars wants to go out there and, go after its purpose. Like, okay, I've done all this work in Cancer. I know how I feel. I know who I am because I've gone through all these, aspects of my identity. And, I cut away the things that don't serve me, or I'm in a process of letting this aspect of myself go. And now I just want to go forward and follow my destiny and do things that make me happy. And as I said, there is this opposition with Pluto, so the integration of this knowledge is necessary, right? That there is a necessity to make a move, to start doing something, because this fire is an element of creation, of creativity. Also, Leo is all about creative self-actualization. So how do we want to show up in the world, in our essence of who we really are? Like, where is my Leo? How do I show up in this world, which is way that is authentic and unique to me, right? And as I said, currently Sun is the ruler of Mars, and Mars, well, currently, right today, we have a sextile between Sun and Mars. So Sun is saying, okay, Mars, I got your back. Don't worry, I'm here in Gemini, I'm illuminating all these aspects of Gemini, right? The flexibility, curiosity, mutability, and this eagerness to learn new things and go out there and explore, gather information, and then change our perspective of reality, because that then information gets passed on to Virgo and Sagittarius, all these immutable signs, they're constantly in communication. And actually the next full moon will be in Sagittarius. Hello. So everything is connected, guys. Everything, the story continuously continues, and the layers are building up on the top of each other as we go along. Just more information is being given to us, so there is not a complete sense of oh my God, what's going on. So we only get these energies in bursts, right? Nothing is happening at the same time. But currently the energy is definitely building up towards a change is necessary. Also change of way of thinking, like the way we thinking. Like currently, yes, Mercury is still in a sign of Taurus, so it's still communicating the information with regards to our values, our needs, our our relationship to ourselves. That is being communicated to Sun, because Mercury rules Gemini. So, and then the sun communicates that information to Mars because Leo is ruled by Sun. So all these planets are in communication, and it's the goal of the game is to follow our purpose, to show up as we, for who we are, and to do what we came here to do, like follow our unique purpose. And no one knows what is that for anyone else, because only you have the answer within you. And that's why Mercury has been in a sign of Taurus for so long, to help us to figure it out, to learn by reconnection with ourselves what that is. And now Sun is gathering that information from Mercury, is illuminating all these options. Like, okay, you have this need, this is what you want, this is important to you, and I'm showing you all these different ways how you can get it, right? Like there are all these multiple options because you are multidimensional. Like we are not just like, also this is about the labeling, right, with Mercury, like in order to create identity, Cancer. And this is actually telling us that, well, you are not just your name, you are not just a mother, you are not just a daughter, you are not just whatever, you are all these things, right? And more, you are more, because you are not just your labels, you are a divine being having a human experience. So with Sun being in Gemini is actually highlighting all this, that this is actually what it is about. You are a multidimensional being having a human experience, and there are all these potentials, there are all these different ways how you can have your needs met, how you can self-actualize, how you can show the world who you are, how you can be authentically yourself, you can express yourself through so many different things. And actually Sun being in a sign of Gemini, now it's time to start talking about it. You're thinking about it, you've been thinking about it, but now you start to actually talk about it, start to learning about it. Maybe as I mentioned in my video yesterday, maybe take a new course or watch some new, I don't know, documentary or something, because this is, Mercury is all about where do I get my information from, all this information, where am I getting it from, where is the information coming from, right? And and I need all these new informations. Well, don't get overwhelmed with all the internet bombarding us with information all the time. But that's why there is this sextile currently going on between Sun and Mars to actually, okay, but is this relevant to my purpose? So it's not just about watching gossip and I don't know, reality TV series. Is this actually supporting me on my purpose or not, right? Because Mars in Leo is actually, okay, well, I have a purpose to follow. I don't have time for all this, like I want to do things that give me joy and that makes me feel happy and make me feel seen and validated. I don't have time just to waste my time for stuff that is not relevant. And and I think this is the process we are going through at the moment. And also, as I mentioned yesterday, this is the beginning of the shift of the energy, because we already have Mars that moved into Leo and we already have Sun moving into Gemini. But then on, I believe it's the June 5th, Venus is going to move into Leo. And just before she does, she will make a trine to Neptune, which is a very positive aspect, because this is again supporting this process of us becoming our true self, like realizing who we really are, and being in alignment with our meaning and purpose. Because Neptune in Pisces is all about higher meaning, and it's all about wholeness, to like get all these aspects of ourselves that are lost, like Saturn is helping us to do, right? Like to become whole again, so we don't have these fragments that then that are lost, and all these situations in our life that are getting us triggered because of unhealed trauma, which is represented the fragments of ourselves that we had to reject, right? But actually Venus going through the sign of Cancer is all about the TLC, taking care of herself. She's the ruler of, Taurus. So there is still this North Node and Mercury and Uranus going on there. So it's all about this healing, because actually Uranus does represent trauma. So, Venus currently ruling Uranus and going through the sign of Cancer is also helping us to heal these aspects of ourselves that are not feeling safe anymore. And then she will move into Leo. So Venus also will be ready to self-actualize, will be ready to go for it, Like now she's still in a process of like feeling into things, like, okay, this is important to me, you know. But then when she gets into Leo, she will be okay. Now it's time to play, time to have joy, time to be seen, time to have fun, right? And Mercury will also move into the sign of Gemini on the June 11th, the same day as Pluto will move, well, will retrograde back into the sign of Capricorn. So we have all this shift happening, and they are preparing us into the Cancer season, which is coming up next month, and we'll have summer solstice, right? And that will be again marking a new beginning, right? The beginning of summer. In Southern Hemisphere will be the beginning of winter, but it's a new beginning. It's again this new energy. So currently we are going through the process of mutability, of, you know, there is a change happening. There is like, we are one foot here, one foot there. There are already planets shifting from the feminine to the masculine sign. So we are gathering information, we are getting our stamina ready, we are about to move, we are about to do things. You know, if we don't know what it is, we still gathering information. Sun is gonna highlight it to us. You know, we're gonna get these communications, we're gonna get maybe inspiration, maybe downloads, maybe we're gonna come across articles or videos that are going to give us this idea, you know, like, okay, let's do this, you know, let's try this. And then when the energy shifts again into the cardinal sign of Cancer, it will be time for a new beginning, right? And in summer we have a lot of changes. We will have the nodal shift. The nodes will move from Taurus, Scorpio, where they've been for the past year and a half, into Aries and Libra, and these are again cardinal signs. And by then Pluto will be in Capricorn, cardinal sign. So there will be all this energy shifting into cardinal sign. Cardinal means a beginning of something new. So this really is now the transitionary period from where we've been, which was all this yin energy. Okay, we had the time to introspect and to feel into things and to ground the energy and to refamiliarize ourselves with who we are. And this process is still happening now because Mercury is still in Taurus and Venus is still in Cancer, but already there is one foot out of that, because Sun is now in a sign of Gemini, yesterday making a trine to Pluto, very positive aspect. Pluto is supporting, you know, this Sun going through the Gemini is supporting what Pluto is doing for us through Aquarius, you know, this necessity to be flexible, adaptable, be curious, seek a new way, seek a new information, accept yourself as multidimensional being. You are not here to be just one label, just to be one thing. You are not just one thing, just one name, just one label. You are everything. You are everything, and you're here to experience everything, all this wide spectrum of experiences of what is it to be human. And the way we're gonna do it is, you know, to be open-minded, to be curious, to find out how, you know, how, like, what else can we do, right? And also to follow your purpose. With Mars in Leo, follow your purpose. There is a sextile between Sun and Mars at the moment. Sun is ruling Mars at the moment, and there is these positive aspects going on at the moment. So again, this is a very supportive process we are at the moment as a human collective, where we are going through this shift from one energy to another, preparing for this new direction, you know, this cardinal energy that's going to come next month and in July with the nodes shifting into Aries and Libra. But, you know, I will talk about that more in different video. But this right now, this 1 month before we get into Cancer season and into summer solstice, this is the in-between. Just as we are in between season, we are in between spring and summer, fall and winter, right? We are the in-between. We can already feel the change in the air, the change in the nature, you know, things are already changing, and we can feel it in ourselves. Things are already changing. More and more people, and I can see it in my environment, are starting to take action or are preparing for the action they'll be taking. They are starting to make plans. They are starting to make bookings. They are starting to think of business plans or whatever it is. Like, maybe it's not the time to, you know, birth it already, but you know, there is this process of movement. Things are already happening. We're not just thinking about it anymore. We're actually making things happen, and this is the process we are at. And there are challenges on the way, because, you know, with the Aries energy, it's all about we don't know where we're going. It's an instinctual desire, and even Mars in Leo, it's following its purpose, but it's still very young energy. Like Leo is like a teenager, you know, it thinks like, yeah, I'm the king of the world, but you know, it doesn't have it all figured out. It's just following its passions. It's following what makes it feel happy and inspired, and it gives us a sense of joy. You know, we're doing things because they make us happy, right? And this is what's happening with Mars currently in the sign of Leo, and it's supporting us on this process, because I feel also from the conversations I've been having with my close friends that life can sometimes become very heavy and very stale. You know, like, is this all there is? You know, just make money, pay bills, you know, and like, yeah, it's amazing to have a great house or car or go for some vacation once, twice a year. But what about the rest of the time? Is this it? You know, is that all there is? And no, there isn't. But we need to figure out the new ways to be. There are different ways that maybe we don't know what they are, you know, different ways to make money, different ways to work, different ways for everything. And Pluto in Aquarius is going to accelerate this process. And, you know, once the planets move, like Uranus will move into Gemini, and Neptune will move into Aries, all by 2026. Chiron will move into Taurus. You know, all these big shifts are going to happen in the upcoming years. But right now we are in the preparation stage. And right now, this month of Sun going through the sign of Gemini until, you know, it moves into Cancer, we are already changing the momentum. We are already starting to open ourselves to these multiple options to be, multiple options to see reality. And this is giving us the sense of lightness. Like, you know, with the Gemini, it's a very light energy. It's, you know, Gemini rules sense of humor, you know, it's like, it's the trickster, you know, it is the comedian, right? And sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes, you know, when life gets too heavy and stale, maybe we just need to laugh, right? To just break the spell, break the energy, and don't take life so seriously, because there are so many heavy energies. And as I said, there'll be all these squares happening, right? The square to Saturn and the square to Neptune at some point, and Mars will make the square of Jupiter, you know, so it will be like, okay, what old belief systems are we still holding on to? We had also this present during the moons recently, you know, like what are we still attached to, you know, these old belief systems that, you know, is this the only way it has to be? You know, also Jupiter being in Taurus now, like, it's going to expand everything it touches. So, you know, do you believe that this is the only way you can, you know, make money, or this is the only way that you can manifest your reality? And how long that's gonna take you, right? Like, there must be a different way, there must be a new way. And now is the time to figure it out, to make a little research, to be curious. But the most important thing is to be open-minded with Gemini. And yeah, just see what happens. Just accept that things are not always the way they seem, because there is all this polarity and duality, you know, everything has the opposite, right? And there are always multiple options. So anyway, guys, I hope that this video made sense. To me, it just feels this energy is quite tricky because there is a lot of things happening at the same time, and there is a mixture of energy. You know, we have positive aspects, but we also have challenging aspects. And this is again telling us that we just need to be flexible, because it is literally the Gemini. Positive aspects, negative aspects, you know, or challenging. There is no such a thing as negative. And this is again to accept that this is life, right? Nothing is always good, nothing is always bad. You know, things are constantly fluid, they're constantly changing. And that's why usually Gemini people are, you know, it's a little bit easier for them to just adapt to all these changes, because that's how they are. It's you know, they're more fluid normally, but of course depends where other placements are in their chart. You know, it could be Gemini, you know, in some very hard position, you know, well, Mercury. But this is the energy of the month, right? So it's definitely giving us some encouragement that things are changing, things are shifting. And if you don't resist it, if you remain curious and open-minded and willing to try different things and look at things from different perspective, and maybe shift your perception of reality, right? Then anything can happen, right? Everything is possible. So anyway, guys, long video. I want to leave it at this. I just thought that this was quite an important information to deliver, because it's setting up the stage for the next, upcoming energies, with the full moon in Sagittarius and everything else we got going on, Venus changing signs, Mercury changing signs in June, and Pluto moving back into Capricorn. And then as the story continues, things changing all the time. But I thought this is a good thing to mention to give us a kind of blueprint of where we at. So I wish you all a beautiful week. Have a great time. Sending much love from Bulgaria, and I'll speak to you again soon. Much love.